Windows
We're making
accessibility.
it easier for everyone to do more with Windows.
Jeff Petty.
Looking back, there are plenty of examples where making something possible for a person with a disability ended up making experiences better for everyone.
A computer screen.
Closed captions are a great example. Closed captions make it possible for people with hearing impairments to enjoy a video. They're also great for following a football game in a noisy restaurant or watching the news in a busy airport terminal. They're great for English language learners and students that want to get the most out of an online presentation or class.
A youngster with a tablet.
We're creating new experiences in Windows that have a similar story.
Enlarged fonts.
We're making it easier for people with low vision to see and interact with Windows. The same features are great for people when they misplace their reading glasses or follow a presentation from across a large room.
To really meet the goal
Carolina
to design
Hernandez.
and build products that are truly inclusive and human-centered, we work with a diverse set of users to deeply understand their needs and identify opportunities to improve their lives through the use of our technology.
A classroom.
When designing and building our features, we conduct usability studies to really understand how our products are working. Our team also connects directly with customers at conferences for people with a wide range of abilities. We have two main goals. First is to help the community learn what's new in Windows and get feedback in how our products are currently working for them. Lastly, our team consults with industry experts and partners throughout our advisory boards who are great at giving us feedback on features that are working and those that could use some improvement.
A woman with a white cane.
These active engagements keep us at the front lines of the information that is coming in, allowing us to constantly improve our customers' experience with accessible, intuitive technology.
The impact of assistive technology is growing. We're making it possible for people with a broad range of disabilities to achieve their full potential with free, built-in solutions that are easy to discover, learn, and use. We're building Windows for each of us so that it's great for all of us.
Windows 10. Microsoft.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to Ability Summit Day 2. I hope you're all settled in. I hope you've got a cup of tea or whatever takes your fancy, depending on where you are in the world. We have a pretty amazing lineup for you. We're going to start in just a few minutes with a series of keynotes, and every single one of them is full of gold dust. You're going to hear from Scott Hanselman, a hero candidly of mine. He's just come off the back of Microsoft Build Conference, which was last week. You're going to hear from CEO Cindy Rose and one of my new heroes, Corey Brown from Channel 4. There's an amazing panel, and I'll come back just before that to give you some context around it. And then a personal reflection from someone that I get to work with as the sponsor of our Disability Employee Resource Group, Chuck Edward and Jessica Rayfuse, who is on my team and the secret magic behind this event. After that, there'll be a bit of a breakout and there'll be some magical sessions there. And I also encourage you to check out two things, resources online that you'll be seeing in your environment. One is an NGO fair, which are 20 different NGOs that have popped videos about their charities in that space. And the second is our product fair, where you'll see quick whizzy videos from some of our beautiful nerds here, some great features that you may not be aware of. And then there'll be a short break for you to go and collect your drinks, nibbles, change into appropriate attire, which may still be pajamas, and join us for a concert from a dear friend of mine, Mandy Harvey, and one of the most amazing ASL interpreters, Amber Gallagher. So let me wind back. What are we going to hear right now? Let me introduce the next segment. I've been so excited about this segment. Our Chief Product Officer, Panos Panay, who has had an amazing passion for accessibility and disability, is going to walk us through his view, his lens, and a bunch of wizardry. And don't step away, because there is a special guest appearance from none other than Olympian Michael Phelps, talking about the very important topic right now of mental health. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Here's Panos.
Hi, everybody. I'm Panos Panay. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Of course, I'm recording from home. Bear with me. I'm so grateful to be part of this year's Ability Summit. Last year, I was incredibly honored to be part of it. I got to sit with Michael Phelps. My children were in the audience. It was so engaging and so deeply inspiring. It hit home on how much, for me, we should be doing to continue to empower more people every single day, every chance we get. Since I was last here, I'm also grateful to have the opportunity to lead across all of Windows and devices. And you are really the inspiration for this. And especially in this current environment, as we're thinking about how to improve devices, how we think about Windows, how we think across the entire company for more people, inspired by our customers to create experiences. I can't wait to share with you our customer story today. I would look forward to telling you more about Windows, and we're also going to check back in with Michael Phelps to see how things are going in this new environment. Inclusive design is part of our DNA, and it has to be. I love this quote, this phrase from the disability community: nothing about us without us. And we want to be intentional in the inclusive design process, no doubt. We want to partner with everyone we can with the work that we're doing, bringing inclusive design principles to every part of our product making process, both across hardware and software experiences. It is core to Microsoft's mission that we empower more people. Get that, empower more people as we continue to build inclusively. We have to think about this, every single person. It's about taking a step back, looking at how a product can be used by every single person with multiple abilities, and where these people, use cases, and products all intersect is critical. For our hardware development process, it started with the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Awesome product, so inspiring. But also with our Inclusive Tech Lab, created at the same time. Being a lab that's dedicated to hear people's voices with disabilities, so our engineering and design teams can hear it directly, encouraging inclusive design in every single step that we take. Our vision, my vision, is to deliver devices and Windows, empowering people across the spectrum of disability, driving inclusion for both the home and the workplace. But here's what's awesome: the home and the workplace, they're colliding in a way like never before. It's amazing. The time we live in. Look, I'm here, I'm talking to you, I'm recording on a Surface Hub. As we think about what's next, as we do what we're doing next, as we create what we're creating next, as we learn from home, work from home, these times we're living in have never, ever been like anything before. And with Windows devices, Microsoft Office, all up, Azure, we have a chance to have so much more impact. People with disabilities have been living at home, unable to go to the workplace. Think about that for just a minute. But now the workplace is home. There's amazing goodness here. We're living in a different time. I feel it every day. I see it every day. We see people now getting jobs in call centers that maybe they wouldn't have ever got before. We're also hearing from our customers around the world. Almost a 200%, that's an incredible number, increase in disability answer desk right now. This means that people are calling the help desk. They're getting the information they need for Microsoft Office and Windows on product issues, accessibility questions, assistive technology, the details that are needed, things we couldn't have anticipated. And with all that, we learn, we hear, we listen. We want you to continue to build with us. We want you to continue to tell us what you're doing, thinking, what's inspiring you, so we can in turn be inspired to make amazing products for you. That is my commitment to you. That is our commitment as a company. I am so pumped to be here. The best way, though, to really connect and listen is a lot of times with a customer and hearing exactly what they're doing. Now, I have a friend, also Mike Clark. He works for Anderson Windows. Incredible human being. I've known him for years. He's been inspiring me. He's been using Microsoft products. And I want you to hear from him directly on how Microsoft products have changed the way he's working, especially in this time of COVID, especially through this pandemic and what it means to each one of us. Good morning. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Good morning.
Thanks for making the time.
You're very welcome.
How's working from home going for you guys? How's it going for you personally?
It's been just absolutely mind-blowing, to say the least. If you know, back in February, before all of this hit, my team came to me and said, hey, Mike, there's this feature called subtitles, and I have meetings all day long, and to be able to join in and get subtitles was absolutely game-changing. Who would have thought 3 or 4 weeks later that we would be sending everyone home to work from home,
Incredible.
And for someone like me whose staff, I rely on lip reading, and it was absolutely a challenge. But because I had the subtitles, I didn't miss a beat.
I love that. So, Teams Free is just launched, Mike, which is exciting. It includes captioning, so everybody can use it. And I think that's part of what we've been using today as we're talking, like keeping this connection between you and I, which I think is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can tell us, what are the things that you can share with others that might help how they use their products today, or what they should be looking for or trying?
At work, I'm blessed to have people that I've worked with for 20 years that they kind of know, make sure they see me. If I don't see them, I can't hear them. However, what you guys have done is you've really given me the ability to stand on my own 2 feet. And that, really is meaningful for, I think, everyone and anyone that's in my type of situation. And with that, what you create is an advocate. And you have great marketing, you have great advertising. But when you have someone else that's lived it and can share their own story, that becomes very authentic. So really, thank you to everyone on that.
It's heartwarming to hear you talk about it. It makes a difference. Like, this is why we do it. If you had a magic wand and you could make these products better, like, this is what I live for. Tell me, what do you want? What are you missing? Tell me, right? Yeah, it's yours.
Yeah, I would say, the most important and most exciting thing for me is really the ability to bring this subtitle kind of feature into ad hoc life. And what I mean by ad hoc life, meaning I can bring those subtitles in anywhere. If I'm on the manufacturing floor in a really loud, noisy environment, and God forbid somebody's wearing a mask for a lip reader, that is the most horrifying thing ever.
Of course.
But to bring up phone, right, or pull something up on my eyeglasses, my safety glasses, to subtitle the conversation that we're having and not have to formally set up a meeting and bring technology to bear, that would be significant. It's the ad hoc part of life that really creates that natural interaction. So to me, that's the biggest one.
Okay. All right. I love it. Mike, I have to say thank you for this time. It's been awesome. The fact that I get to see you again today like this is almost a dream for me. And anything you want to close with, Mike? Just anything you wanted to share with the community that's listening now?
No, I think it's just another heartfelt thank you for me to send feedback, and then to be able to engage with various leaders across the company who genuinely want to have a win-win scenario for Andersen and for Microsoft together is refreshing and really wonderful to see. And that's been a remarkable transformation for Microsoft. So I love that. So the more you do that, the more you're going to see Andersen engage and giving feedback and sharing ideas.
Thank you for having a voice. Thank you for making a difference. Thank you for pushing us all forward. For me, it's been special, and thanks for your time today.
And thank you very much. I look forward to collaborating more.
Let's take a minute now to talk product. It's so fun talking to our customers. It's so fun listening to all the feedback that continues to be brought to Microsoft to think about how to make our products better. And we're so inspired to continue to build with you, to improve accessibility across all of Windows and devices, empowering every single person on the planet to achieve more. And now we have some new features coming. I'm pumped about them. I'm excited. And it's just the beginning of how we're going to continue to find ways to improve over and over again, including we have new text cursor improvements within Windows. They're super cool. Magnifier comes to life, having to read text out loud to you, reducing the strain of reading on your screen all day. We know how important that is, and it is a really incredible feature. We've improved Narrator. Our built-in free screen reader on Windows 10 right now is more natural and efficient as an experience than ever before, including better reading, smarter browsing, and a number of Outlook experiences that come involved there. And even in our hardware and the keyboards, where we've added bumps on the F4 and F8 keys to position your hands perfectly, and mute where it moved from F4. And it's so simple. When you think about simple product, just simple product moments where we take the F4 key function lock, which was so important, which where mute was, and moved it, adding it to the hit. It's so critical for us to make sure those little small things happen to make the product better for you. And the best way to feel it, see it, sense it is this small video that the team was so excited to put together for you. Check them out. Thank you for continuing to build with us. This video kind of brings it all together. When we build together, what a difference we can make.
Microsoft Accessibility.
Our goal is to bring inclusive design principles to the product making process. We have a ton of brains and minds all coming together, talking about the struggles that we see our participants and our subject matter experts having.
We believe our work has the potential to change how people with disabilities experience and interact with technology.
Welcome to Narrator, version released in 2020. No more unhelpful hyperlinks. Web pages are read automatically.
Accessibility products. Our approach resources.
Take the big picture of what accessibility is and what it means to have an accessible product, and have people bring them back and make each individual product better.
If our mission is really to empower every organization and person in this planet to do good, then that's helping Microsoft achieve its mission.
Hey, before we close, I want to take one more minute and talk to you a little bit about mental health. Last year, if you remember, Michael Phelps joined us at the Ability Summit. I thought it was awesome. It was amazing, impactful for me. He's the most decorated Olympian of all time. He's an inspiring, he's an author, a father. He's an unbelievable athlete and a good friend of mine. I wanted to take a few minutes and share with you the conversation that Michael and I had. I hope you enjoy it. We're in COVID. We're in a pandemic. Can you tell us what's changing for you? Tell this, maybe give some advice and thoughts to the audience that's listening.
I mean, almost like I feel lost in a way, because I guess it is all the uncertainties, and the biggest thing for me is like I try to just keep a routine and a schedule. Like for me, working out every single day, no matter how my mind or body feels, I know that 100% after that, I'm going to feel better. That's what makes me. I've done that for 20 plus years, and I have to continue to find something exercise-wise to keep my brain going, my head working correctly. Like for me to be the father and the dad and the husband that I have to be, that I want to be.
You inspire a lot of people. You do. It's incredible what you're doing. If there was a way that I could convey that, and I know like the mind space is not that simple, but you really do, Michael.
But like when I was swimming, I always looked at like 3 things that I could do really well, right? So, I mean, I can go back to where my coach kicked me out of workout every single day for a week because he was trying to teach me the basic 6-beat kick in freestyle. And every time I dropped my feet and I stopped kicking, he would kick me out. I made it 800 the first day, like 2,000 the next day, 5,000 the next day, 6,000 the next day. And then finally, after a week, I made the whole entire workout. So the thing was he was trying to get me to do the basic thing really, really well and better than anybody else. Because then if I can do that perfectly, then I'm able to grow this army that's so big, right? So it's like figuring out those things that you can control. That is the one thing, that I think in my swimming career, I did better than anybody. So it's for me, what's important and how can I control those things to help make that work?
When you think about technology in the COVID world, what would you ask for? What would you want Microsoft to be providing if there was something out there that you needed?
When I was my best, I was talking to a therapist. So I was utilizing every app possibly could. So Talkspace, I was on there more. And I feel like for a part of the stretch, I got lazy and fell out of that routine. So I think like little things like that, like I don't know if it's whether it is more therapy based or if it's like a daily checkpoint, like some little thing, mental health related, because I feel like there are so many other people and millions of people who are afraid to stand up and talk about it. And I think if there are ways where you can almost just make them feel comfortable, right? Like my dream of all dreams was accomplished and I fell into the biggest state of depression, right? Like I win 8 gold medals and then I'm depressed. So I think it's just what else can we do to really make people feel comfortable and relaxed and allow themselves to become vulnerable? Yeah, I feel that. If you just had one piece of advice you wanted to give the folks at the Ability Summit, and any thoughts you can leave us with. I mean, look, like I've learned a lot about myself through this quarantine, and like honestly, I no matter what, you have to take care of what you need. if it's getting out of bed and walking around the block, walk around the block, like find something that you can do similar to that that's going to help you, because you need that routine. So I think at times, we do need to take a step back, and we need to take a deep breath. So we have to remember to be kind to ourselves, take care of our needs.
Love it.
It's so simple, but it's something that's also so easy to forget. So I think, as long as we are doing that, we're giving ourselves the best chance to be us. And at the end of the day, that's what we want.
Agreed. Hey, Michael, I just want to say thank you one more time. You inspire so many people. You inspire me. Well, thanks for everything, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today. We've only scratched the surface. Go out there and try some of the features we've announced. And give them a shot, give them a spin, play with them. Tell us what you think. We'll continue to improve them. I want to thank Mike Clark and Michael Phelps for joining me today. We know how many people out there would be listening. We're so grateful for that. We know there are features out there that people can benefit from. We hope you can use them. Continue to keep us grounded. Please reach out and let us know your feedback and questions at the Disability Answer Desk. We'd love to hear from you as we build these products for the future. Thank you so much.
Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman. How cool is it that Panos was here? Oh my goodness. I am very happy to be hanging out with you at the Abilities Summit. I have been thinking about accessibility for a very, very, very long time. 20 years ago, I did some work with the Associated Blind of New York and learned all about what it was like to use a machine from a screen reader. And I spent about a week with my laptop closed doing that, living that, so that I could try to develop empathy for someone with low vision. And while my disability doesn't affect my internet usage, I'm a type 1 diabetic and I've got a number of medical implants and different wacky stuff. It doesn't change how I interact with the computer in any substantial way, but it has given me a sense of empathy in that, from my perspective, everybody's got something. And as a developer, we stand between everybody who's got something and their success on the computer. And their success might be a user interface that we could work on, a design that we could put more thought into, a system that we could make sure is accessible. When we talk about inclusion, we can think about it as the inverse of exclusion. If you don't make something work for everyone, you are consciously excluding someone. By designing for everyone, you're going to avoid so many bugs, so many issues. And with developers, if they use the feature in the same way that a customer will, for example, if you as a developer, regardless of your ability, use just the keyboard, then you're going to avoid bugs and you're going to have a better experience for a customer who is unable to use a mouse. If a developer like myself appreciates that someone with low vision would potentially be blocked from using an application, whether it be their contrast or color blindness or certain uses of colors, you can again prevent a bad experience. I was actually legally blind until I got LASIK, and now I've got cataracts, so I have that to look forward to. Thinking about that at a level of extreme empathy, of like, have I built a system that everyone can use who is not me? Literally putting yourself in the shoes of the other person is such a helpful and such a useful thing for you to spend your time on. Your potential customer base is going to be greater as well. If you use standard controls by default, and if you do some custom UI, plan out the amount of work you're going to have to do to make sure that that is got an accessible system. Accessibility is an understood science. It is an understood practice. So there's industry standards. You very, very rarely have to reinvent any kind of wheels. Just make sure that you're implementing something that is a great match for the semantics of the UI, and that if you're expressing something, for example, in a chart, is that being conveyed to customers? Is it being described by someone who uses a screen reader? The thing that we need to think about is not just empowering other people, but the power that we have as devs. You as a dev should feel so excited about the power that you have to impact so many people's lives. And think about how bad it is right now on the internet when things don't work. and how that must feel as you are doing your thing. Oh, and these stairs don't have a ramp, and I can't get into this place. That is what it feels like to be using a user interface and to go right up against a drop down or a spinner or something and have no idea what's going on there, and you can't interact to it. So what an amazing summit and what an amazing opportunity to let us as devs be empowered to empower other people. Thank you so much for letting me just chat with you for a little while, and I'll cut back to our friends at the studio. See y'all later.
Hi, I'm Corey Brown. I'm a continuity announcer for Channel 4 Television in London, and we're the people that talk on the television between the programmes. So that's a mix of creative and technical and marketing and editorial and performance work. I have a severe sight impairment. It doesn't define me and it does not devalue me, but it does mean that sometimes I have to approach things just a little bit differently. It's now widely recognised that effective workplace adjustments can help organisations to find and retain really great people. But when I started out, it wasn't like that. People weren't talking about disability, so neither did I. I didn't want to be judged or perceived negatively because of my visual impairment, so I just put my own adjustments in place. Back in 2011, as we were gearing up to show the Paralympics for London 2012, the business was really waking up to disability and working with disabled talent and the whole conversation around disability. And suddenly I felt, as one of quite a few people working at Channel 4 with a lived experience of disability, that I almost had a sense of responsibility of needing to be a little bit more vocal. I am a founder and a co-chair of 4Purple, which is Channel 4's disability staff network. And our mission is to encourage a wider conversation about disability, to raise awareness and to empower everyone at Channel 4 to feel more confident about disability. Of course, an inclusive culture has to be nurtured and it has to be maintained. And it's really great to see businesses making commitments around disability inclusion, but the pace of change is just so slow. And actually, I think the only way that we will really start to shift the dial on disability is to have more people with lived experience of disability in senior positions within organisations where they can really start to directly influence change. I'm Corey Brown, continuity announcer for Channel 4 Television in London, and I am chatting today with Cindy Rose, CEO of Microsoft UK. And we have here two organisations with a great relationship, and a real cornerstone of that is our shared values around inclusion, around enabling people to be the best that they can be at work. And obviously accessibility plays a huge part in that. For many people, myself included, accessible tech is becoming increasingly that sort of vital enabler. So I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to chat with you today, Cindy, about what your team has done in recent years and learnings and insights from that, which hopefully are going to be really beneficial for other leaders and other organisations.
Oh, thank you so much, Corey, for the gracious introduction. It's great to speak to you again on a topic that we're both so passionate about.
Okay, so let's get started by talking about culture, because through my own experience at Channel 4, I know how important culture is. So it'd be great if you could tell me a bit about the culture at Microsoft UK and how that's impacted your thinking around I&D and, of course, around accessibility.
Absolutely, Corey, I'd love to. You know, it might sound obvious, but for us, it all starts with our mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And when we say every person, we mean every person. So actually diversity and inclusion is just inherent. It's baked into the core of our mission. But they're just, you know, nice words on a page, really, at the end of the day, unless you create a culture where people feel safe to speak up, to be curious, to ask questions, and to challenge the norms, because that's how you create a culture where people actually feel empowered to bring your mission to life and make it real every day. And I think in the UK, we've worked hard to bring D&I, diversity and inclusion, into everything we do. So if you look at our people agenda, if you look at our investment decisions, our planning processes, our marketing, our events, everything we do has an angle of diversity inclusion. It's really become absolutely essential for us. And over the past couple of years at Microsoft under Satya's leadership, we've really been through this profound cultural transformation. And there's been this fresh focus on not just the employee experience, but bringing accessibility into our product and service design process. Through the accessibility features of Microsoft 365 or Windows 10 or the Xbox Adaptive Controller, just as a few examples. But this fresh focus has kind of inspired us to think about how we help our customers and partners embrace accessibility as a core priority as well.
Yeah, totally agree. I think as somebody who has really been banging the drum on technology and inclusive technology for a really long time, but has more recently kind of felt like I've got the backing of Microsoft. You know, we're starting to run events internally where Microsoft have come and talked to members of staff around the accessibility features in Windows 10. And that was just amazing, you know, seeing people just really lit up by stuff they had no idea about. And I guess, you know, to me, all this stuff is really obvious, but to a lot of people it isn't. And so now to be working with Microsoft and our account team in new ways is, I think, really, really exciting. Back in 2012, Channel 4 was the Paralympic broadcaster for London 2012. The first time we'd covered the Paralympics. And for us, that was a real moment of change, seismic change within the organisation. And it really impacted our brand to this day. So that for us, I think, was our kind of moment. Has Microsoft had a defining moment? And if so, tell me more.
Yeah, gosh, I remember so well that inspiring Channel 4 moment back in 2012, that ad campaign and your coverage of the Paralympics, I think changed the way people feel about the Channel 4 brand and probably forever, and really showed the world what superhumans those Paralympians really are. It was brilliant. When I think about our experience, it's probably less about a moment and more about a movement. But there are definitely moments of significance that stand out for me personally. So, for example, you know, our Future Decoded event, which is our marquee event for customers and partners at the Excel in London, thousands of people attend. And in 2017, we invited a developer on stage from Intel. His name is Tom Nabarro. And Tom is a Microsoft super user. He's also quadriplegic. And he came on stage in front of 5,000 people, live audience, in his very high-tech wheelchair. And he showed us all how he logs on using Windows Hello facial recognition, how he uses Cortana, which is our virtual voice agent, to install Visual Studio right on his computer on stage. And then he started coding with eye gaze control. You know, we got such amazing feedback on that session. As you suggested earlier, people were blown away and didn't realize that all of these accessibility features were even available. And they were just very moved by his story. And that was one of the moments for me when I realized that we really need to start putting accessibility front and center at all of our events and in everything that we do.
Let's talk about change. What does change look like for you and your team in the UK?
Yeah, it's a great question, Corey. I mean, change for me looks like walking the talk. It looks like taking all of that passion and energy that people have for accessibility and converting it into meaningful action every single day. And a couple of examples that occur to me are, you know, some of the investments that we're making in our disability employee resource group. I know it doesn't have as snappy a name as yours. What's your employee?
Full Purple.
Yeah, we need better branding, I think. But you know, we make a lot of investments in this group. There's 180 members, and it's recognized as one of the largest chapters in the world for Microsoft. And these folks play an enormous role in terms of advising the business and just being thought leaders in the external marketplace on this topic. But other changes that we've made, as I mentioned earlier, when we talked about Future Decoded, is just how we run events. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but it wasn't until 2016 that we actually started using closed captioning in presentations. And you know, we introduced that, and then we started experimenting with accessibility storytelling. But honestly, our events weren't what you would consider accessibility friendly. So we really today put accessibility at the core. It's a central focus for every event we run, large, small, internal, external. Now when we run Future Decoded, or at least before COVID-19, when we were at the Excel, we had Braille books and tactile maps for guests who are visually impaired. You know, we support every presentation with British Sign Language. We only work with suppliers who meet our standards. We train our people on how to have empathetic conversations with our guests. So completely new approach to running events. The other change we made is the accessibility badges that we have for our employees. That's, you know, part of our culture change internally. This year alone, for example, we've had over 750 employees earn their accessibility badges. And to do that, you have to demonstrate your knowledge and skill in implementing accessibility best practices and presenting inclusively and hosting inclusive events, etc. And this isn't even mandatory training, it is voluntary. So it just shows you how much passion there is for the topic within our organization. And finally, I would say a big change that I've seen is how we engage with customers and partners. It's something I'm super excited about because I think it's about how we make accessibility a business imperative for our customers and partners. I mean, we have 25,000 partners in the UK alone. And as an ecosystem, they employ over 600,000 people. And most of them want to represent our values. So if we can persuade them to take, you know, real tangible action, then we can really deliver digital inclusivity at scale. And that's exciting.
Really, really powerful stuff. I mean, the changes that you're making are just so impactful. And I think organizations around the world really should be following your absolutely brilliant example. So Cindy, picking up on your point about customers, and obviously I know through my own personal experience that making choices around accessibility, it's now possible. It's something that I do. So can you perhaps talk to us a little bit about accessibility as a business imperative?
Oh, absolutely, Corey. I mean, as you know better than anyone, from a macroeconomic perspective, people with disabilities are the fastest growing community with spending power of £250 billion a year. That's the, as we call it, the purple pound, right? And it's very significant. Another way to look at that is that businesses stand to lose £2 billion per month by ignoring the needs of this community. So yes, absolutely, this is becoming a business imperative for our customers who are, again, not looking at it just from an employee experience perspective, but they're thinking about how they enhance their brands and how they adapt their business model to meet the needs of the diverse customer base that they serve. And we've got many examples of this. We see it a lot in the public sector, in the private sector. One of my favorite examples, we're working with WPP, which is a great customer of ours. You know, and if you think about it, WPP makes 1 in every 3 television ads in the world. And you think about the ability that they have to make a positive impact in the world. And they're very passionate about inclusive marketing. So they understand the power of creative campaigns, as does Channel 4, that can really influence like what we consume and start to break some of the stereotypes. By creating campaigns that reflect, you know, the diverse society that we live in. And they're using Microsoft technology to do it, which is even better. And just last month, we jointly hosted with WPP an event called The Creative Brilliance of Dyslexia. And this was to educate people on how do you create an environment where dyslexic people can be open and can flourish rather than covering up their true selves. And, you know, work that we do with our customers like that is just an enormous source of pride for us.
Wow, it's amazing stuff. Great stuff. I'm sure you've learned so much along the way. In fact, Cindy, tell me about some of the greatest lessons that you think you and your team have learned along this amazingly exciting road of change.
You know, Corey, we've had so many learnings over the years, probably too many to even mention, but just the one big one for me personally is the learning that when you empower people with disabilities to achieve more using technology, we all benefit. You know, the world becomes a richer place. And I've learned this through the work that we do with Microsoft for Startups. We run a program called AI for Good, which is for startups and social entrepreneurs. And we take them through a 4-month program so that they can use AI to drive accessibility outcomes, basically. And one of the startups that we've been working with is called WeWalk, which is an amazing group of people who have decided to revolutionize the standard white cane. You know, there's 250 million visually impaired people in the world. Many of them use the standard white cane, which has a lot of limitations because it can't sense objects that are above chest height. And with this simple device that WeWalk have created, it has now become an AI-powered smart cane, which gives people with visual impairments improved safety, mobility, and independence. It's just an amazing innovation. Another startup that we're working with is called Signly. This is a startup that has invented an internet browser extension that offers sign language for web pages for the 11 million deaf people in the UK who rely on British Sign Language. And it's a super simple browser extension. If you hover over the text on a web page, it will translate through British Sign Language. Very simple, but makes the online world, you know, so much more welcoming to people who are deaf. So I could go on and on, but I think, you know, these breakthrough innovations not just improve the quality of life for people with disabilities, but again, I think benefit us all. And that was sort of my biggest learning this year.
Amazing stuff, absolutely phenomenal. And it sort of brings me around to my next question, actually, which is, you know, that's what's happening now. So what about what's next? You know, how do you see the future?
Yeah, I think what's next for us in the UK is really doubling down on our customer and partner engagement. So how do we help our customers and partners accelerate their accessibility journeys? How do we help them improve the employee experience within their organizations and also embrace inclusive design thinking so that they can start to create products and services that serve, you know, the entire world and everyone in it. So we have this thing called Just One More Thing. So when we're having a conversation with a customer, at the end of the conversation, you say, and just one more thing. Let's talk about accessibility within your organization. And almost universally, customers are very excited and enthusiastic about having this conversation. And I'm so excited about this that, you know, we're going into our next fiscal year and we have a standard kind of account planning process. We're going to introduce accessibility into every customer account plan. And for me, you know, that's pretty game changing. So we're humble. We're still on a journey. We've got a long way to go, but I feel very proud of the progress we've made so far.
Brilliant, inspiring, phenomenal. I completely agree with everything that you've just said. And that's probably a really great place for us to end this conversation. So Cindy, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely delightful chatting with you today. And till the next time.
Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate it. And it was great to speak to you today, and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello there, this is Jenny back again. Isn't Corey wonderful? And Cindy. A big love to my friends across the pond. It's getting near bedtime, so I hope you're sitting there and having good times listening to all of the great content. And I have to give a shout out to some of the amazing comments we're getting on Twitter. People have fallen in love with Cindy Rose's Microsoft pillow. They're not for sale, as far as we know, but bring it on. I did see that Veronica has got her quesadillas ready, so she does not have to miss a beat. Bring it. Please do continue to post your comments, post your pictures. We are checking them through here at Ability Central. My own little Easter egg is the t-shirts. I've actually got every single t-shirt from the last 10 years. This was the first one we ever made, which is the Ability Summit logo. It's purple. It's got the letters of ability spelled out in sign language and in non-tactile braille. No one's touching my shirt. And the word ability. And at the back it says, talk to the hand, which we did think was rather comical 10 years ago. Post your Easter eggs, post your memories. We really do want to hear them. But now let me transition to the final two segments of the opening of day 2. And the second segment coming up, you won't want to miss. We do believe disability is personal, it's real, and it's something that we own and we empower everyone to talk about. And that's really where we're going to dig in after this panel. And this panel is being led by the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, the president of University of Washington, as well as Tim Shriver, the president of Special Olympics, and Jen Mankoff from UW, announcing an incredibly new and important initiative, particularly in these times. So let me, without any further ado, leave you in the faithful hands of 4 amazing speakers to talk about the future of accessibility in society and in research.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Shriver, and I'm thrilled to be back in Seattle virtually. I'm thrilled to be back at Microsoft, thrilled to be back with University of Washington. After 2 years, just 2 years ago, I was a part of the community that brought the Special Olympics USA National Games to Seattle for a triumphant 10 days when people from all over the country came together to celebrate the beauty, the power, the urgency of acceptance, tolerance, unity, I dare say, in the face of difference and stigma and prejudice. And in this moment, to be back discussing and convening around an Ability Summit, I can't imagine a more important task or a more important moment. I'm your moderator today. I'm enormously proud to be joined by the president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, with whom I worked closely during the games and since, with the president of the University of Washington, Annamarie Causse, and with Professor Jen Mankoff, who's in the Paul Allen School and specialist on computer sciences and many other things, to discuss where we are now and where we're headed and some important next steps. So let me start by welcoming you, Brad, to your own summit. I'm pleased to be a part of the welcome team, but share with us a little bit why in this time you're seeing this issue of inclusion and ability and the importance of overcoming the differences and separations that confront the people with all kinds of differences. Why is this important now?
Well, it's a great question, Tim. And obviously this is a time when most of us, or at least many of us, are more isolated than ever. Many people are lacking the economic support they have in other times. It's a time of challenge, often for people with disabilities, as they're needing to work like all of us in new and different ways. It is a great reminder, I think, that when a crisis like this comes, you can only face it with what you have put already in place. And I think for all of us at Microsoft, we're grateful for the fact that we started the Ability Summit a decade ago. So having the 10th summit is in and of itself a great milestone. A huge thanks to Jenny LeFleury and her whole team that have worked with so many people to put this together. But I also would say, as I think about the 10 years that have gotten us to where we are today, we've had many steps along the way. We at Microsoft created an autism hiring program, a disability answer desk, an ability hack. But I would also tell you, certainly from my own personal experience, one of the greatest highlights of the last decade came 2 years ago, when we had the Special Olympics nationally in Seattle, when we all got to work with you. And Tim, I think you had such a profound impact, as did all of the participants in those games, on all of us who live in Seattle. So, having you rejoin us in this particular challenging moment, having us remember what we've done to date, but I think more than anything, using this as inspiration to do even more, I think that's what this summit and what this conversation are all about.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you for welcoming me and for the contribution, both of the company as well as so many of your employees. We've been in discussions, in recent weeks and months about what it means to come out of this more united. And I was talking to Loretta Claiborne, one of our Special Olympics athletes, and she said, isolation's not new to me. I've lived my whole life isolated. I grew up isolated. I was thrown out of school, felt isolated. I didn't have friends. I was isolated. I live alone. She said, even she's in her mid 60s, a fantastically resilient and powerful woman. But the end result of her message was that the way out of this is service to others. Anamari, your background in mental health and psychology, the university's leadership on so many different fronts. You were there, of course, for us during the games, but doing so much more now and in the intervening time to promote the hiring, the inclusion of people with all kinds of disabilities at the UW, but also your graduates out in the work world.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I think back, it was such a fabulous time, and having an Ability Summit in person, where we could all be together. It was really great. And sometimes 2 years seems like yesterday, and then there are times when it seems like, as some people have said, we went from daylight saving time to the twilight zone. But I do think that this period has highlighted inequality that much more. We're much more aware of it. And there is one real positive to having this summit virtually, and that's that we can bring in a broader public to explore the ideas of how we empower people with disabilities. And in the long run, to get to the kind of large-scale systemic changes that we want is going to require a broader public. I couldn't agree anymore with both of you about how this is part of our public mission, that it's important to extend ourselves and to reach out to others. But I also really want to underscore that we're doing this at the University of Washington not as some kind of charity. It really is in our self-interest. There are, as we well know, if we didn't know 2 years ago, it's certainly obvious now, the world is full of big, complicated, difficult problems, and we need all the talent out there at the table. We can't afford to leave talent at the sidelines because of, issues with accessibility.
You're on the front lines of this work on the technology side, and obviously we're at Microsoft, so people are talking about how many nerds can we get to solve a problem, and geek this up. Share a little bit about the work you're doing so we can have a better sense of where the academic pursuits and technology can help us.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to pick up on what you were saying about the need to do a rethink and the issues with equality, because that's actually, I think, really critical. Speaking as somebody who actually has a disability myself, I have done a lot of thinking over the years about how can I remotely participate in things, for example, right? And it's so striking now to see how the opportunities are changing for the better in some cases for me and other people with disabilities to be involved in things that were harder to access before, including also, again, not just lifting up people with disabilities, but all of the people who can participate in a summit like this, for example, from all over the world. So we have a lot to learn from some of the work that has already been done in trying to address disability and accessibility. And I think that's just a great example of the synergy that can exist. I also want to say that, when it comes to lifting up everyone and sort of trying to create that equality, that is actually an area of innovation that both Microsoft and UW share a really strong interest in. And so some of the kinds of projects that we've actually collaborated on have really emphasized that. For example, we have a joint interest in creating the tools and organizations necessary to ensure that people with disabilities can reach their professional goals, both in the educational system, but also, for example, in the inclusive hiring work that was just mentioned. We also have research projects in better programming languages for people with disabilities, for example, the Eyes Free Art project, which was not just research, but also an installation that launched multiple careers and was, again, jointly done with UW and Microsoft. So I think that it's really exciting to see how we amplify each other. And I'm just going to bring up one other example because it's really about making Seattle more inclusive as well. So very much in the vein that we've been talking about, which is the work that we have all been doing on transportation, trying to think about how we can improve the data that's available about Seattle, the information that's available to people when they're trying to do route planning, all the way up to the last few feet problem of how do we get somebody from the end of a route to the actual door of a building that they're trying to enter. And again, just wanted to highlight that this is the kind of stuff that we've been doing together between UW and Microsoft, as well as having independent interests in these areas. So really exciting for me as somebody new to Seattle to be able to join this, the work that's being done across these two wonderful institutions.
I would,
yeah, go ahead, Brad.
I would add to that, the University of Washington has been such an important source of talent for Microsoft. People sometimes ask, why is Microsoft headquartered near Seattle? The truth is, the answer is because the University of Washington is based in Seattle. Bill Gates and Paul Allen grew up in the shadow of the university, were connected to it, decided that this was the right place for them to attract talent for Microsoft. And one of the things we found over the years is just how extraordinary it has been to bring talent to Microsoft out of the university, not just the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, now the Allen School as a whole, but also the Access Computing Program. And what we have found is not just great talent in employees, but great research partnerships. Our partnership between Microsoft Research and the university goes back to a decade ago, when Professor Richard Ladner at the university worked with the team at Microsoft on how to take sort of one of the biggest advances in technology, the touch screen, but recognize that it created new challenges and barriers for people who are blind. And that was an incredibly important step for us, I think, not just at Microsoft, but for our entire industry. And when I think to the fact that when we announced a year before the arrival of the Special Olympics, that we would devote that to making Seattle even more a city of inclusion, it's not a coincidence that when we made that announcement, we actually made it at the University of Washington.
Yeah. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about the need for creativity. Brad, you were saying before we started, the journey to higher ambition. I think of, 300 million people around the world who have an intellectual disability. And our movement, the Special Olympics movement's big, right? We're 5-6 million people, 100,000 events a year. So you'd say that's really amazing and it's comprehensive. But even if we reach 6 million, we're missing 290 million. And we've just been imagining in this period of time the potential for technology, for online experiences, for digital experiences, to reach a mother right after a diagnosis and reach out to her with kind of supports and information and skills and photographs and images of what her child, her son or daughter can become, the way in which he or she can grow and develop. That would allow a movement like ours. We're just one piece of a disability puzzle, but it would allow a movement like ours so much bandwidth. We could geometrically expand the number of families we reach and therefore empower them and hopefully set them on the track to being able to work and even go to school in places like the UW. It's a time of great excitement, and I think, Anna-Marie, if we're going to get to higher ambition, we got to do something big. I think it's time for something big.
Well, that's where we're at. I think both Jen and Brad. Jen gave some wonderful examples of work that we've done together. So is Brad, and our partnership with Microsoft has been great. But we're going to give it, another bounce and take it to another level. And we're establishing. Talk about creativity. Create the Center for Research and Education on Accessible Technology and Experiences. As we've noticed, this pandemic has highlighted the need for accessible solutions for all. So the timeliness is absolutely perfect. CREATE's going to focus on developing high-impact accessibility solutions through a cross-disciplinary approach. It's going to integrate our world-class research, education, and translation to improve access to technology and to the world at large. So it's really bringing together all the strengths of these two fabulous institutions. Our partnership goal is to raise $10 million to fund this program for an initial 5 years. And we're deeply grateful to Microsoft. They've already made an inaugural investment of $2.5 million.
Nice.
And our initial funding will launch the initiative, enable new explorations and collaborations, and serve as a catalyst for additional investment to fully fund the center. We're raring to go. We start today.
So give us a sense of your vision. Super exciting. Congratulations to Microsoft for putting the first 25, sounds like 25%. My math's not good. It sounds like 25% of the total goal already committed, which is fantastic. Picture for us where we go in 10 years. What's the destination on this, Jen? What's possible?
Yeah, first of all, I can't even tell you how excited I am about this. It's such an amazing opportunity for us to build something bigger. And, you know, we are sitting at a moment where we're on as was said, the 10-year anniversary of the Ability Summit. The 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act is this year. And equitable access for people with disabilities is clearly our goal. Looking back, we can see that technology alone and policy alone are both not enough. And that's why it's so important that CREATE is multidisciplinary. And our 9 founders come from the iSchool, from engineering, from rehab medicine, disability studies. And we are working together to try to ask, how can we advance people with disabilities options? How can we give them agency and new opportunities? And so the kinds of projects that we're looking at are really trying to embody those questions. We're looking at, you know, can we personalize not only user interfaces, but also the 3D printed and other kinds of hardware to better match people's individual abilities so that we can lift people up based on their specific needs. We're looking at wearables that can help make the world accessible. For example, providing in-situ captions through augmented reality to people who are deaf. Inclusive data collection and analysis. For example, we have a project that's looking at how can we assess the accessibility of all Android apps and then begin to ship them so that they're really putting that front and center. We're also doing a study of COVID-19's impact on students with disabilities. Again, if we don't collect the data, we can't ask the questions. This is so incredibly important. Accessible Seattle, I already mentioned our efforts on transportation, crowdsourcing data for that, and so on. K-12 kids, and then also professionals, tools that can let us bring STEM inclusion across the entire pipeline so that we can bring people with disabilities into STEM professions. And we won't have achieved these goals if we haven't also done translational work. And so we are explicitly looking at what can we do to get things out there. And just to give a historical example of that kind of impact, we have faculty who help publish and do the research to guide the design of mobile screen readers. And that kind of work that they did has influenced every Apple and Android phone that's out there. So that's the kind of impact we want to have in CREATE.
Brad, do you have a sense of where you hope this goes and how the company can continue to play a role as this brand new center gets up and running?
Well, I think your words actually put it really well, Tim. This is a journey and this is the next step forward. And one of the exciting things we found is that with each step that we take, it sort of opens up new opportunities, even if we don't always know in advance what is over the horizon. But I think you captured so well a reality. This is not a narrow issue. It's a broad one. We all know that 1 in 7 people on this planet have some kind of disability, intellectual or physical, temporary or permanent. And yet what we've also learned is that people are not defined by their challenges. They're really defined by how they overcome them. And that's one thing that I think is a real testament to frankly, everybody who's participating in this event, this 10th summit. When I think about why Microsoft is taking this step, why we're putting forward $2.5 million with this kind of effort, I think it's both because of a deep appreciation of the importance of the issue, but I would say it's equally because of the people inside Microsoft and outside the company that we've had the opportunity to work with and be inspired by. Whether that's people like Jenny, who has been spearheading this idea, nobody should be surprised by that. People like Ann Taylor, who is part of our accessibility team. somebody who has just shown what you can accomplish when you take on computer science starting as a high schooler, even if everybody else thinks that you can't because you're blind. But I would say one of the things that we've really learned from the Ability Summit itself is the power of having this community grow over time. It has been a bit of a tidal wave. And I think first the sort of tidal wave took us to every part of Microsoft as more and more people have gotten involved. It's taken us beyond the company's four walls. That's why this event became something that is part of a public conversation and not just an internal one. And I think it's a really interesting moment to think about what we do have the opportunity to accomplish. It might be easy to say, well, why would we do this in the middle of a pandemic, amid a huge recession, and of course there's budgetary pressure all around? And I think the answer is twofold. One is because we can, and the other is because we must. We all appreciate, as people who've been working on this, as people who had the opportunity to see what you brought to Seattle, Tim, 2 years ago, that we have to keep moving forward. And that, more than anything, is what we're trying to do. We're putting a stake in the ground, we're raising our ambition level, and we're saying we're going to do more. I'm excited to be a part of it. My role is actually always the simplest. I just go ask people for money. That's the Special Olympics. I've done that at the University of Washington. This is a wonderful cause to go talk to people about. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be involved in it myself.
I think when you ask them, they say yes too. That's the good part. I ask people for money all the time. They say no, but when you ask them, they say yes, which is very, very.
I just want to add that the excitement you see here amongst all of us, it is shared by our students, our faculty and staff, even our nerdiest students, of which I, fit that bill, really wants to see their work make an impact on the world. And they're excited to see that they're going to be taking these, intellectual, sometimes very nerdy problems, but, putting their creativity together in a way that's going to make a difference in other people's lives and in the world. This is really exciting for all of us. And it's all about partnership, and it's all about that notion of all together. And that all has to include people with a broad variety of abilities and disabilities. And so I just want to thank everyone in advance for this amazing partnership. I am 100% convinced, as is our faculty, students, and staff, that together we can make a meaningful impact in this field for the people here in our region, in the Seattle region, but also all over the world. This is going to give us, in the midst of all the adversity, this is going to give us something really positive and meaningful to focus on.
So there you have it. I'm drawn to remember a moment when I was listening to Archbishop Desmond Tutu. This was some time ago when he was in the early stages of leading the Truth and Reconciliation work in South Africa. And he said, people often ask me and say to me, isn't evil more powerful than good? And his response, with his very lilting kind of light voice, was, no, evil is not more powerful than good, but sometimes it's better organized. And his lesson was, if we're going to do good things, we got to be organized. We got to get after it. We got to take it seriously. We got to have our heart in it. It doesn't just happen. And this is work that will not just happen. It has to be organized. There has to be commitment. There has to be a seriousness of purpose. There has to be a dedication of time and real resolve. And I hope that all those folks watching will see in, what seems like a fun and happy celebration here, a real serious resolve. That we will not allow this moment to pass, as Brad said. It would have been very easy to say postpone. Very easy to say not now. Very easy to say we've got other things to do. But in this moment, I think we're seeing a sense of resolve and commitment that we're not going to tolerate letting the forces that would exclude and divide and separate us to prevail in the future. And so we commit ourselves to this new center to raising money for it, to marshaling great academic brilliance in support of it, to getting great corporate leadership to make it happen. But mostly, I think, to committing ourselves to a more inclusive and a more welcoming future in this country and around the world. And I'm certainly very proud to have played a small part in this announcement, but hopefully a continuing part in that larger effort. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Any day we get to spend with you is a good day.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Jessica Rayfuse. I love how that group really talked about bringing together the intellect, bringing together the experts to really create something that can make the world more accessible for everyone, because that's really what we're here to do. So to everyone that's joining us, let's bring that intellect together. In other breaking news, we got to the bottom of Pillowgate. We found out that Cindy's Microsoft pillow, her daughter actually made it. So thank you, Cindy's daughter. I know that a lot of folks are creating art out there. If you head over to Jenny's Twitter page, her daughter Fira made a really cool inclusive Microsoft logo. So share your kids' photos, #AbilitySummit. You too, Spencer Rayfuse. We hope you make a picture that you can share with everyone as well. So I'm super excited for this next segment. I think this really embodies what the Ability Summit is all about. It's my pleasure to welcome our next guest. He brings with him 30 years of human resource experience and 16 years of Microsoft experience. He has a passion for people that is truly remarkable and really brings an empathy that I think is going to impress everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome Corporate Vice President of Human Resources, Chuck Edward.
Thank you, Jessica. What a humbling intro. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. You and I first met through the Employee Resource Group. Our ERG is parents of kids with disabilities, family members. It's people with disabilities themselves. We span over 18 specific disability segments across 30 countries. And you are the executive sponsor of the ERG. So tell us a little bit more about your involvement with the community.
Yeah, if I could just, dive even a little bit more into my background, it'll give you some more color to why this matters so much to me. So yes, a long career in human resources that I'm proud of, but to enter into human resources, my early career was as a mental health professional. Got my undergraduate in psychology, spent early days working with children with autism, children with special needs. I was a counselor in a psychiatric hospital for a while. And so in some ways, coming to the Ability Summit and celebrating the 10th anniversary is really coming full circle. And it's very, very special because my roots and the reason I got into HR to begin with had everything to do with ability, disability, helping others in the mental health profession. So it's really very, very rewarding. As part of that, several years ago, my manager, Kathleen Hogan, the head of HR at Microsoft, had a really great ask of her team, which was for us to get more involved in the ERGs. The ERGs have a long, rich history in this company, and we were aware of that, but it was time for us to kind of step in and take more of a leadership role as HR folks. And so I raised my hand gladly to be the HR exec sponsor for the disability ERG. And it's been a couple years now, and I equate being a sponsor to being an ally in some ways. And that old adage, learn how to help others, help me, help you, where you start by listening and learning and figuring out where you can help and where you can lean in. And sometimes it's obvious and other times it's not obvious, but you have to have an open mind. I think as we've continued to get more rhythm together and I've become more comfortable as a sponsor, I realize where we can help. Active listening. Helping with funding, helping advocate for policies and guidelines, helping select employee-led leaders to help with the ERG, and basically being visible and involved. And then I would just leave you with one other piece, which is, I think we're doing a nice job of looking at intersectionality. In other words, having the ERG leaders from the various ERGs get together to talk about common themes and practices, all in the spirit of inclusion at Microsoft.
I really love that. I love the active listening. We could all do more of that. And I love bringing people together. I think those are lessons for each of us that we can take away. As you know, I too am part of the ERG. I have muscular dystrophy, and I've used a power wheelchair for 20 years-ish. So that's a lot of time for me to kind of hone in on my own disability and create my own narrative for what that means to me. I know that there are people who have non-apparent disabilities or invisible disabilities where disclosure is a lot more complex. Disability is very, very personal. And I know it's very personal for you too, Chuck. And I'm wondering if you would mind sharing with us really what is the rest of the story that you're bringing here today to the Ability Summit?
Yeah, and this is one of those moments I've thought about literally for years. For years, I knew there would be a moment when I could hopefully find the right vehicle to tell the rest of my story. And here I am, from my own home office in front of a huge audience, able to tell you this story. So you heard the background and you heard why professionally I have such a longing to make a difference in this space. But what you don't know is that 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis myself. And in fact, if I trace back to when I was first having the symptoms, it almost coincides exactly with the tenure of the Ability Summit at Microsoft. 9.5 years. 8 years ago, the official diagnosis. And that 8 years also means that about half of my career here, I've had MS. Today's the first day I'm coming out publicly to tell people about it. So it's really a special moment for me, and I've really been looking forward to this. But the early days were hard. When I was initially diagnosed, I went through some of the stages that I think a lot on this call would resonate with. All the emotions, anger, denial, sadness, hopelessness. I felt it all. Very early on, I had moments where I didn't want to tell anybody, and I figured I wouldn't have to tell anybody because it would become so obvious when the symptoms became pronounced that I wouldn't have a choice. It would literally happen in front of everyone, and then I would tell them what was happening. But with each passing week and each passing month, that didn't happen. It wasn't obvious to others. And I was more and more in my own head. And at that time, only my wife and I knew. And it was becoming somewhat paralyzing. But the weird part is my career was going well. My job was going well. So I had these extremes of really being empowered and doing great work and getting promoted, but having this pressure of, will I ever tell folks of the hidden disability? And by the way, I wasn't even using the term disability back then because I surely wouldn't have admitted it in those early moments. So it was really, really difficult. What started to change over time was I wasn't wanting people to feel sorry for me. I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't looking for anything special. I was really trying to deal with it. And in many ways, I was using it as a motivator. Get up and work out. Get up and take care of yourself. Live in the moment, but all on my own terms. Two profound things started to occur. Number one, I became more involved in the National MS Society, and more specifically, the Northwest chapter of the MS Society. And through Microsoft, we have a wonderful giving campaign where we can donate money. And I obviously had a personal reason to want to donate. And in doing so, I met some wonderful people in the MS Society. And most notably, it was a woman named Lori Johnson. And Lori Johnson and I used to meet and talk about the journey and how hard it was and why I was struggling to come out and what was the downside if I did. And she and I kind of had this agreement that one day when the time was right, I would find a way to tell the story. But I was long away from being able to do that. Continued to give to the society and became more active. While that was going on, our company was changing. Our company's culture was evolving, and we started to use words like empathy, vulnerability, allyship. We admitted that many people were likely covering when they came to work, and you started to see role models tell their covering stories. My manager, Kathleen, was wonderful at being vulnerable and giving me room to realize a lot of topics are okay. And it really is okay to not be okay. And if anything, it's not compartmentalized as something that's hindering your leadership. It can be part of your leadership gift if you want to go there. So this was the world I was living in. Outside nonprofit support, a company culture that was evolving. And I realized that I was really being given the room to lead in a very, very different way if I was willing to go with that. Then it just became a matter of when, not if. And so Jenny Leigh Fleury and I agreed several months ago that the 10th anniversary was really maybe the best time for me just to tell the story and see where this takes it. I envisioned early on being on a big stage in a room that might have been a little more nerve-wracking, but here we are. And I'm just proud to tell you all this today.
You are a role model. I think your story is so powerful for a lot of people that are listening today who may not feel comfortable disclosing just yet. And I just feel so privileged to be able to work with a leader like you who is that vulnerable to share that story. So thank you. I think there are a lot of leaders on the line too who can learn a lot from what you're saying today. If you could reach out to those leaders and talk to them about your experience as a person with a disability, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I think what's been so inspiring for me working with the disability community is that it's like holding up a big mirror, and it's inspiring, but it's also a sense of accountability around if we're really going to walk the talk on saying that it's important to have your voice, then everyone has to find a way to have their voice. And for me personally, as a corporate vice president here, I was being a hypocrite, to be honest, as I was coaching others to tell their manager and to reach out to others and ask for help. And trust me, it's okay, our environment will support you. And each time I was saying that recently, I realized I just hadn't done my part. Now, this doesn't always have to be disability related, but I think the advice I would give to other leaders is never ever underestimate the power of being vulnerable and transparent, because it invites others into the conversation. And early on, I got too hung up on, well, what if I don't need any help? And what if I don't need an accommodation? Then why should I tell somebody else? Why should I bring myself to that emotional level again if I can hide it and compartmentalize it? But I think that's the point, is that the power of allyship and empathy is that you might not need help, but by telling your story to somebody else, you might be welcoming them into a different level of discussion that they didn't think was possible. Sometimes 1 by 1, sometimes 1 by 10. In this case, maybe 1 by 5,000. You just don't know where it can go, but somebody has to start. And as much as we have a really great culture, there still is a hierarchy sometimes where people are waiting for their manager or leaders to go first to create that opening. So I would just say all of us as leaders have an opportunity to invite a different type of discussion.
Well, Chuck, your story is a real gift to everyone. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Like I said in opening, this was going to be one of my favorite parts, and it really was. I appreciate all that you've taught us and the journey that you've taken us on. I want to officially welcome you to the cool gang of people with disabilities. I promise you it's a fun group.
Proud to be part of it.
So thank you so much for sharing and for really being a leader to our community.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And with that, folks, I will bring our opening session to a close. At 2:30 Pacific time today, our breakout sessions will start. So please head to the master agenda and see which sessions you want to join. There are a lot of great options. After the breakout sessions, you'll have 40 minutes to play around. Head to the product fair, go to the career corner, connect with nonprofits and charities. Just really play and have a good time. Come back to the master agenda at 4 o'clock for our first ever Ability Summit concert. Because what is a birthday party without an incredible playlist? And we have one of the best. We have America's Got Talent Golden Buzzer recipient, Mandy Harvey. She is incredible. You really do not want to miss it. So enjoy your afternoon, have a great time, and we will see you soon. Thank you.